you are is the great I am, before and after time. You are here and now, the healer, as you are being healed. For the great I am lives in and through you, that's how it is revealed. 'Cause you are the I am, that's all you need to be, here to make the difference, set and be set free. You are so much more than your feelings, more than your fear. Though it takes you to a deeper place that's asking to be clear. You have that voice within you with the answers every day. And you'll hear it anytime you get out of the way. 'Cause you are the I am, that's all you need to be, here to make a difference, to set and be set free. Oh, you can laugh, you can cry, you can just go for the ride. You can stay, you can play, it's the right thing either way. 'Cause you are the I am, it's all you'll ever need to be, here to make a difference, to set and be set free. You're here to make a difference, to set and be set free. You are the I am. You are the I
Well, thank you very much. And thank you, Ruth, for including those lyrics in your, if you haven't read the newsletter, you must. It's a dandy. Written and put together by our wonderful Ruth Trailer. So it is December. I like December because it's Christmas time and there are more lights. We need lights right about now. The color is red, and the month is December. And when I knew that I would be speaking today, I thought, well, it's the 12 Powers of Man. Now, I love the 12 Powers of Man, and I kind of read it, you know, and I wrote a whole CD of songs called Quiet Powers in Sound for a friend of mine who had a company years ago when I first started in Unity in the 80s. And I wrote a whole CD of music for the 12 Powers with my friend Tom Bishop. And the song on the Power of Life was a piano piece. So I went right to the Unity website and I said, you know, it's life. And the color is red, and the month is December, and then life is the ability to energize and animate. And the affirmation is, I am filled with life, sweet life. And the location on the body is the reproductive organs. Well, I'm a Scorpio, so I'm like, okay, that's Scorpio place too. And I thought, you know what, might not be a bad idea to go to the book itself by Charles Fillmore. I'm going old school, ladies and gents. So for you newcomers, please indulge me, won't you? And what you might hear might surprise you, but we're just glad you're here and keeping an open mind. So I went to the 12 powers, and I went to the chapter on the 12th power, which is, for as long as I've known, was just called life. And then I open the book and I go to the chapter, and it says generative life. That piqued my curiosity. Generative life. Oh no, isn't it just life? And and then I read the color's red, reproductive organs, and the disciple is Judas Iscariot. This is where you would hear the scratch on the album. What? Wait a minute, hold on. And I said, oh no, that must be a wow. Yeah, it must be a misprint. That's it. Charles might have been, I don't know what he was doing that day, but Judas Iscariot. Why? What's that about? It was too, it was a little, and I had forgotten. I sort of skipped over that. You know how you do when you're studying, when you're new to a study. You're like, I'll go back to that. Judas Iscariot, yeah, seems a little deep right now. Life, yay! Generative life, ooh. So I kind of went down the rabbit hole. It was kind of cool. It was kind of cool to go, let's look into this. And I was reading, and I had to go to, sorry to say, I love Charles Fillmore. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore reparented me spiritually, from a nice Irish Catholic girl to a metaphysician. So I have incredible regard for their teaching. But Judas was the bad guy my whole life, growing up. Why did he? Because he moved the story forward. And that he was an essential player in the story. Had it not been for him, no crucifixion, no resurrection. I remember hearing Martin Scorsese interviewed, and he said that at a roast of him once, his parish priest came. It was part of the roast. And when the priest got up to do his part of the roast, he said to Martin Scorsese, Martin, after watching your films, I'm afraid a little too much Good Friday and not enough Easter Sunday. But he is kind of my favorite director because, he directed, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, and Age of Innocence, and Goodfellas. There is that. And unless I'm willing to look at that, I don't have to take it in, but I cannot deny that there is that part of me, of life, that it's mysterious, it's dark, it's a shadow. I like tapping. Does anybody here practice tapping? It's fantastic tapping. And I love Nick Ortner and his sister Jessica and Nick Ortner, because when they start leading you through a tapping, and our own Celeste is a tapping expert. They say acknowledge what's going on, as you start tapping. Even though I'm angry, even though I'm afraid, even though I have all this anxiety coming up, even though I'm not feeling well, all is well. You will get to letting it go. But first, But to say, no, it's just not, it's not sustainable. It's not, it's not going to serve me. But to go, ooh, Judas Iscariot. Yeah, I don't think he knew. I have no way of knowing. My magnificent imagination, which is the power of imagination. Andrew is the disciple. Andrew, I'm sure a lovely guy, not and wonderful imagination. But as Judas Iscariot, I have to look at that. I have to look at that part. But my imagination says, I don't think he expected it to go that way. He might have thought, you know what, I'm going to tell him where he is, make a couple of bucks. They said it was greed. I'm sure a big part of it was greed. His betrayal was greed. But in the long run, maybe it was, he's Jesus. He can disappear to the mountain in a heartbeat. I don't know. The movie that's running in my head of how it's going to go often is not how it's going to go or how it's meant to go. But generative life is a much deeper power than life. Whee! Let's go! Generative life is, what am I creating? I am so often creating here when I should be creating here, and in my second chakra is your creative chakra. That what am I creating? What am I co-creating with the guidance that I'm receiving? The last couple Sundays I've been talking about creativity and getting back to that focus instead of focusing on what is going on. Because what is going on is, whoo, I can't take it in, or this. I think I also presenced, what was that horror movie that was like, it's coming from inside the house. The call is coming. That's how I feel in my mind sometimes. It's coming from inside. It's you. You're doing it. Stop it. So I went on mighty Google and looked up generative life. That's so interesting. You guys, there's a lot of information. As you probably know, there's a lot of information on the www. So I found this really cool article called Stories We Tell. The Stories We Tell. Themes of generativity and redemption. Redemption. Do you think Judas, who reportedly took his own life after it all went down because he could not live with what he had done? Redemption. I like to think that there was redemption. I like to think that there's redemption for all of us. That, I came to Unity, and I love Catholicism. It was my first theater experience. It was beautiful, and smells and bells and Christmas and woo, incense and yeah. And the priest had, I'm a kid from the 50s and 60s. The priest would have his back to us doing a hooky-doo, and then in the 60s it became what I heard referred to as the Julia Child's cooking show. All in English now, and here's what we're doing. I like the other way. I don't want to know. I'd like to think that I love Unity because we don't believe in hell. We don't believe in hell. We know that all souls, and there are then the Buddhists, there are bodhisattva in Buddhism that keep incarnating. They could go to nirvana. They've worked out all their karma. They're good to go. But they keep reincarnating until all sentient beings can go to nirvana. How's that for love and service? Jeepers. Are you kidding me? You could go and you're coming back? Okay. I admire them greatly. I like to think that I'm speaking to a room of bodhisattva. On some level, you know, we are showing up for each other. We're showing up for Unity Northwest. We're showing up for each other. Continuing to show up. That's a great start. After showing up, all bets are off. I don't know what's going to happen, but just your being here is lovely. But I did want to read a little bit of this. What is generativity? Generativity is a concept developed by psychologist Erik Erikson in the 1950s. Now, I didn't realize what when this. I can't find a date when this was published, but you know, I think great minds. It's like the Emerson and Thoreau, yeah, were the transcendentalists. Have you been to Concord? I'm going off on a couple tangents here. I'm sorry. Woo! Yes, Concord, beautiful. So here's what he says. Generativity is a concept developed by psychologist Erik Erikson in the 1950s. It refers to the concerns individuals feel for the next generation. I think that's a bodhisattva move. You know, the Native Americans say 7 generations. Preserve the earth for 7 generations ahead. That's looking ahead. People who are highly generative care about the well-being of future generations and work to positively contribute to their future. Generativity can be displayed in a multitude of ways, including parenting, volunteering, activism, and mentoring. Erikson believed that generativity developed when people entered midlife. Okay. Well, and beyond. Yeah. Around the age 40. Do you know, Unity has become, the demographic of Unity is middle-aged 40-year-old women. Is that interesting? And yet we are all here. Love that. In his research, McAdams has found that this concern for future generations begins in middle adulthood, but extends beyond and continues throughout older adulthood. What does a generative life story look like? In their research, McAdams and his team interviewed hundreds of adults, asking them to tell the story of their lives, from childhood until the present. How does a generative life story develop? McAdams is particularly interested in how adults develop generativity. He talks about the generative themes usually talk about the meaning they derive from watching their children and other family members develop, the community activities they engage in, the civic responsibility they feel for future generations. Overall, generative middle-aged and older adults reference a concern for the future and a higher frequency. We are moving into an unbelievably high frequency time now. And I think we've asked for it. I think we thought, TikTok, let's go. We are upping the frequency, and I think we are matching the frequency. I think we're showing up for the frequency. All light workers called to the front lines. You know, stay strong, do your yoga, do your tapping, stay in your body, and generative life. I was I've mentioned a couple times that I've spent the last 18 months up in Minnesota, where it's so beautiful, so beautiful. And I was graced to, I was living in beautiful Lake Minnetonka area, and I would take walks, and they have incredible trails there, and I'm sure they do in Illinois too, that I will find. But I would look at these glorious trees, and I don't know if you've had this experience, you probably have, where you're taking in so much beauty that you are feeling connected with, that it's a little heady. It's a little overwhelming. Have you ever had that experience where this whole chakra just opens up and you're like, oh, thank you. That you feel the connection. It happens, for me, it happens in nature and with others. With others in comedy clubs, which we've not been able to be in. I think that's one of the things that's making me so goofy from time to time, is that laughing together, going to the theater, which we're now just starting. How does a generative story develop? Nick Adams is particularly interested in how generativity, they could communicate in their life through stories. Story, the moth, how many people you love the moth. A common theme developed, which Nick Adams calls redemption. Those that frame their narrative as redemptive often have 6 major events that comprise their life story. 1, early advantage. You guys, I grew up in Crystal Lake. I was born in the 50s, and beautiful home. There were a lot of us. It was out on West Hillside Road, which was just like sort of a path. Crystal Lake, I swam in Crystal Lake. The reason it's called Crystal Lake is because it was so clear they got ice from the lake back in the day. I mean, I grew up around such beauty. But my father passed suddenly from a stroke when I was 11, and then my oldest sister in a car accident 3 months later. So early advantage, suffering of others is number 2. Generative adults then discuss how they had an experience in which they witnessed the suffering or death of others. This is fascinating. Not just me. Everyone. What is the expression? Be kind, everyone is fighting a battle. Everyone could tell you a story that would make you think, how do you make it through something like that? Moral steadfastness. I've got to say, the nuns, though they were, strict, and I've said a million things about them, really, they were pretty solid at that time. Moral steadfastness. Next, these individuals talk about how they developed a clear sense of right and wrong and discuss that they stuck to these values for the rest of their lives. Generative adults talk about how they had a negative experience, a death, divorce, job loss, COVID, that led to a positive outcome in the end, strengthened religious connection, a happier life, or a good job. People are looking for, I think first we're looking for a reason, because we've got a reason maker between these guys. We want to know why. I used to say, food, shelter, and someone to blame. Whose fault? Do you know what? I don't know. I don't know how it came. I don't know what I think everybody's doing the best they can, but to move out of fear. Power versus love. Throughout their stories, generative adults talk about their struggle between power, having a good job, attaining success, and love, raising a family, having a good marriage. And 6, pro-social goals. The life story usually ends by the adult discussing their goals for the future that involve furthering their community and broader society. What I know is don't go it alone. And I want to. I don't know why I want to. I don't want to need anything, and that, I can't blame that on Catholicism, though that was encouraged. Buck up, buck up, that will not serve anybody, right? But to go with others. The African wisdom says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. I think the journey that lies ahead, we're going to need to be together. We're going to need to be together. We're going to need to come together, put our differences aside. Because I'm pretty sure, I wrote a song a couple months into the pandemic, we are out of time for anything but love. We're simply out of time. So, of course, love is a huge part of this generative life. What am I going to generate? Am I going to generate fear? Am I going to, keep talking about it? No. Let's generate, a teacher once told me, if you're sad, make something. Learn something and help somebody else. I think we're pretty grief-stricken, but I don't want to affirm that anymore. Yes, it's been really an incredible grieving time. When I know my bottom is where I stop digging. So I'm not saying buck up or pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, but I am saying, you know what? There's a time for grief, and then there's a time to get back to generative life. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, but that's all the time I got. Or do you remember a movie with Holly Hunter? I don't think it was called Network News, but it was Broadcast News. Thank you. Where she goes in the hotel room and she unplugs her phone and cries, and then plugs her phone back in. I don't know. Is there a time when you just gotta go? I watched Memoirs of a Geisha. Oh my gosh, let me cry because I'm sure I was in Japan. I'm sure I was a geisha in Japan in a previous life, but that's a completely different Sunday. There's a time, to come through the grieving. And then it's okay to get back to a generative life of creating a new story, to create a new, where do I want to go now? Where do we want to go now? What's our vision? Maybe in January but let's not wait for January. Let's have a new vision today. Let's start working on a new vision today. What do you want? What do you want it to look like? What do you want it to feel like? What can I generate in moving forward? And to not look back, or maybe look back, but don't stare. It's okay to look back. That's gonna happen, and especially if you need to sort of like prime the pump, because we need a good cry. Otherwise, we're going to get a cold, because the body wants to cry and release that, and when I don't, it's going to send up a cold, so I can cry 24/7. I say, I've got a cold, but really, I'm sad. Yeah. So I wanted to close with this lovely piece by the Hopi Elders, because I think it's really what this is about. Not doing it alone. Don't go it alone. The pioneers did that. Jeepers. Thank you very much. Next. The Hopi Elders speak, and the title of this is "We Are the Ones We've Been Waiting For." You've been telling people that this is the 11th hour. Now you must go back and tell people this is the hour. And there are things to be considered. Where are you living? What are you doing? What are your relationships? Are you in right relation? Where is your water? Know your garden. It is time to speak your truth. Create your community, be good to each other, and do not look outside yourself for the leader. This could be a good time. There is a river flowing very fast now. It is so great and swift that there are those who will be afraid. They will try to hold on to the shore. They will feel that they are being torn apart. And they will suffer greatly. No, the river has its destination. The elders say we must let go of the shore, push off into the middle of the river. Keep your eyes open and your heads above water. See who is there with you and celebrate. At this time in history, and this was written years ago, at this time in history, we are to take nothing personally. Least of all, ourselves. For the moment that we do, our spiritual growth and journey comes to a halt. The time of the lone wolf is over. Gather yourselves. Banish the word struggle from your attitude and your vocabulary. All that we do now must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration. We are the ones we've been waiting for. The elders, Oriibi, Arizona, Hopi Nation. I love Native American wisdom, and I'm so grateful to the Hopi elders for reminding us it's okay to celebrate. We must celebrate. Yes, it's going to be difficult. And, as the Irish say, thorns have roses. Thorns have roses. I've had quite enough of thorns. And I know that they're always going to be there. But you know what? Just for today, I'm going to look at the roses. Thank you.